Track and field, our focus today. Casey Bogues joins us. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Of course.
Two-time Olympic trial participant, three-time A10 champ in the Javelin. I want to go back to the start because you have such an interesting story about how you found Javelin. And correct me if I'm wrong, you started on the soccer field.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I started as a soccer player. Always thought I was going to college to play soccer, and got a few too many concussions and explored some other routes.
And one of those routes is track and field, but it wasn't initially Javelin.
No.
But you had hopes of getting there and throwing it, and it finally came full circle.
Yeah, so I started out as a sprinter and a jumper, and one day we had a rainy day practice, and my coaches had a fun practice for us planned. We played dodgeball, and I was, I guess, throwing the ball a little too hard because my coaches walked up to me afterwards, and they were like, "You need to try javelin." And at the time, I wanted to try pole vaulting. So they were like, "You need to try javelin and get good at it, and then maybe you can try pole vaulting." So that year, I started throwing the javelin. I progressed way faster than they thought I would, and I ended up going all the way to like the top meet in the States and competing pretty well at it. They let me try pole vault for a practice after that. One day, figured it probably wasn't the best thing for me, and this javelin thing's going pretty well, and I've been throwing ever since.
Pole vault wasn't in the cards.
Nope, just wasn't.
What's your favorite thing about javelin?
The fact that competition is, yes, there's other athletes there, and I'm competing against them, but every day it's just me versus me trying to get better than I was the day before.
The mark and trying to sort of chase it. Do you know, like, when you throw it, that, like, it's a good one?
I usually have a feeling that it's a good one, but I honestly don't have any depth perception whatsoever, so I can't tell until they have that mark pop up on the scoreboard to show me where it is.
When it comes to your career, I find it interesting because you're learning about this sport, and like even coming here to like Dayton, like early on, like you were still jumping.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself 2020 Olympic trials, which is 2021.
Yeah.
Did you, going back to like arriving on campus, did you ever have that like in your mind of like, I got a chance to be in the Olympics? So
the goal always coming on at my recruiting visit, the goal was to compete, place at A10s, and qualify for the regional meet. As the first year and a half we're going, because my freshman year was canceled due to COVID, my goal always was place at A10s, possibly win A10s, and go and qualify and make it to regionals. I guess my coach had a little bit of a different plan in his head because he saw the way I was progressing and everything. And like after I did all those things and I made it to trials, like him and I, we had to sit down, person talk, and he was like, "Yeah, I always knew you were going to be doing stuff like that. Like, you didn't believe it, but I believed in you enough for the both of us. So it must have worked because there I was."
Was that maybe the first time that you realized like, oh wow, there's something bigger like out there?
Yeah, kind of, because at that point it was still the mindset of, hey, this is still kind of new to me, because I only started throwing my junior year in high school, or the end of my sophomore year in high school. Hey, like, we're just doing this for fun, like, I'm learning as I go type of thing. I never had that like bigger picture of like, there's bigger meets and like stuff that I can be chasing and trying to qualify for and better myself to be at.
So you get to compete in the Olympic trials, and then I know that you had that on your goals for 2024. What was that satisfaction of being able to get back there and then also being there and performing well?
I'm one of those athletes where like everything is always about getting better that next day. So yes, that was always a goal in the back of my mind, is that I wanted to get back there, especially because I had that unique opportunity. Not many athletes get the chance where there's 2 Olympic trials within their career at the university they're at. So the focus was getting better one day at a time and hoping that the progression that I had would carry over and that I would be able to go back there. And that day that I found out I qualified again, like just I can't even express the amount of relief that I had knowing that I was able to perform well and compete how I needed to qualify again. And then to be able to go there and have, I'd say, the best two performances of my college career, I don't even have words of how grateful and everything I was for that.
Does the stage change at that level, or is it just javelin at the end of the day?
At the end of the day, every meet is the same for me. I find if you put too much pressure on big meets like that, that's when you have the tendency to crack under the pressure. So my mindset's always going in is that it's just another day of throwing jav, focus on the technical cues that you have, and everything's gonna end up lining up the way it needs to when it needs to.
Well, you have delivered so many big throws in your career, and you've been able to accomplish so much here at UD. Was there one thing in particular that you take the most pride out of, or maybe your favorite moment as a thrower?
I know, like, the expected answer obviously is going to trials and competing there and competing at nationals, but genuinely, like, the moment I take the most pride in would be, was it 2 years ago at the A10 championship when we were competing and there were 3 of us competing in jav. It was the first time I had so many people competing with me, competing at the championship, and then my teammates and I being able to go 1, 2, and 3 on the podium. It was like the best moment of my college career competing. It meant so much to me having my teammates doing well with me, not just me going and competing well.
Well, and that's something that like you've told me in the past is, you know, javelin, here you are in like sort of this individual role, but there's a huge team component to it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, in track, like, yes, you can go and you can win your individual event, but at the end of the day, even with it being individual events, it's still a team sport. Like, you're not going to win unless your team also produces. And I have a great group of ladies by my side to compete with, so it's always an honor being able to do well and succeed with them.
So there's the student athlete component too, and I know last year we were able to check in with you at your school spot, your other school, and
Yeah.
over at Mad River. You're doing your student teaching, and you're still after it, right? When it
Yeah.
comes to education.
Yeah, I'm a part-time special ed teacher currently at that school that we checked in at. It's where I did my student teaching, and this past January I started my part-time job. I'm there half the week currently. I fit that in as my other job as being a grad assistant here on campus. So that other half of the week I'm over on UD's campus helping the teacher ed field office, and then the rest of the time I fill it with track.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but looking ahead towards next year, you're going to be full-time teacher, right?
Yep, I'm going to be a full-time teacher in the exact position that I'm in currently. I'll be a full-time special ed teacher over at Spinning Hills and Mad River, and I can't be more excited to start that and be with the kids full-time.
Congratulations, that is awesome news.
Thank you.
But you're not going to stop when it comes to throwing, right?
Nope, I'm definitely going to try to keep throwing next year and see how much better I can get after college and after being a student athlete.
And let's talk about this year, because I know, you know, you're in the thick of it. What are sort of the goals and your hopes for throwing well after what we'll see in May and the regular season?
Well, I know I ended the season last year with some pretty big throws, having a series at the finals for trials as high as the marks were and throwing that 57. Even with those marks, like, I know I have more in the tank. Like, so the goal for this year is always to have bigger throws and to gear up to get ready towards the end of the season to really start popping off during that championship time. But again, every day I try to focus on step by step, those like smaller rungs on the ladder instead of like trying to get to the top right away. So the goal is always to focus on technique and getting the right technique down before I even try to hit those big marks, because those won't come without that technique.
I've always sort of enjoyed like the warm-up, especially like on the big stage, and I've always wanted to ask this question: do you have a song in particular that gets you pumped up?
It's going to be The Champion by Carrie Underwood, because I like having that mindset of I'm there, I'm the best, like I can do this.
talking about champions, you were recognized this past year at a basketball game.
Yeah.
And you got to take center court. What was that experience like?
Like my jaw almost dropped on the ground, standing there in the middle of the court, looking at all those people standing there clapping. Like I just couldn't even believe that I was there and that I'd gotten to this point. Definitely have to give a lot of credit to the women's and men's basketball team for playing on that stage every game.
Well, Flyer fans, they were able to give you a nice round of applause, rightfully so. It has been a thrill watching you, Casey, and we look forward to continue watching you down the road.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.